What's up, guys? Eric Bray, Focus Fishing Guide Service, Table Rock Fishing Intel. Got another video fishing report for you for Table Rock. It is Wednesday, August the 10th. Kind of got rained out. Well, we fished yesterday, but report got rained out yesterday after we got done fishing. So I'm shooting it today, shooting it in the storage unit after a trip. Bite's been good. Been catching quite a few fish. Got a couple of different things going on. We got some movement, some things that are happening, so we'll get into that a little bit as we get into this. As far as our lake level, we're at 913.7, which puts us 3.3 feet below normal pool. Beaver's essentially at normal. Bull Shoals is around 5 foot high still. The core's really not running as much water. They've got some constant flow going, but it's like a half a unit to 2 units, and they bump it up in the afternoon to generate some power. But other than that, not a whole lot of current going through the lake right now, which really hasn't hurt the bite. Water temperature is actually lowered a little bit. I think this rain and a couple of cooler nights have lowered that water temperature down a little bit. We're around that 87, 88 range. We were getting pretty close to 90 pretty much everywhere, but it is definitely cooled off a degree or two. It'll probably warm up once we get some warm weather again this weekend. But the bite is changing just a little bit. We're starting to catch fish doing a couple of different things. You know, it's still summer, so we still got the same summer bites going, but best way to stay on top of it, best way to know what's going on, best way to catch fish, or the most productive way to catch fish, join Table Rock Fishing Intel and know before you go. Get those daily reports, weekly reports, all that information, all those videos that help you catch more fish when you go to Table Rock. But if you're coming down, gonna fish the lower end continues to be the toughest end of the lake. If you're down there, the best thing I can tell you is to run up Long Creek, get your Arkansas license, and go into Long Creek and fish shallow. The deep bite, even at the lower end, has been tough. You know, 4-hour trip. You go up lake and you're looking at, 10, 12, 14, 20, sometimes 30, 40 fish on a 4-hour trip. If you're up lake, down lake, it's single digits to, maybe 10 fish in 4 hours, and that's using live bait. So lower end is definitely fishing tough. If you go up in the Long Creek, up in the Arkansas, you can catch them on a peewee football jig. You can catch them on a big worm, basically fishing flats, the same sort of stuff we talked about last week. The flats bite is really starting to turn on, starting to see these fish show up in that 12, 18 foot range out to about 20, 25. Targeting sonar really makes it a lot easier to find these fish. You can see them on your sonar and actually throw to them and catch them. So a big worm, and a peewee football jig, or even a shaky head with like a Senko on it, would be a good choice on those flats up there. But fish a little deeper than you think you need to. You're not really beating the bank. These fish are offshore, relating to brush and relating to isolated pieces of cover up there. Mid-lake's a different story. You've got a real strong drop shot bite in the mid-lake, catching them on a shad-shaped cut tail, UV drop shot worm, Chomper's drop shot worm. I'm still doing better out in the trees than I am out on the flats, but I have been venturing out on the flats and finding a few fish. Most of the fish I'm catching are 20 to about 35 foot deep, and I'm catching them with either a drop shot rig or Jewel scuba spoon over top of the trees, or actually casting the spoon and working it over top of the trees is how I've been catching a lot of fish lately. Out on the flats, it seems like they're in that 20 to 25 foot range, so they're not really deep, but they're out on those flats. You do have to move around a little bit, find them, and when you find a school, you need to stay on top of them and work them kind of hard to get them to bite, and the drop shot rig's definitely been better out on those flats. The football jig, shaky head bite is starting to come around. We're starting to see some smallmouth move up, starting to see some fish move. They're not shallow, but they are shallower than they have been, that 15 to 25 foot range on those flats. Basically the same areas that we're drop shotting. If you drag a bait in those areas, you can get bit with a football jig, peewee football jig, a big worm, shaky head like a squirrel head with a Senko on it. You can catch them doing that as well. And I will say, have a topwater tied on. There's not a defined topwater bite going on right now, but we are starting to see fish bust and shad a little bit more this last week or so. Could be the weather, could be the rain, could be who knows what. But we are starting to see fish starting to bust shad, so it's a good idea to have a topwater handy in case they do come up while you're out on the water. Go up into the James. The shallow bite's definitely better up the James. You can catch a few deep on a drop shot rig or a spoon out on those gravel runouts and gravel points, 18 to 25 foot deep. But really doing better with a peewee football jig, a big worm, a squirrel head with a Senko on it, or even a big football jig. and kind of working those gravel flats from that 15 to 25 foot range. They're not that much shallower because the water's not that much dirtier, but we are catching a lot more largemouth up in the James, fishing those flats. Again, your targeting sonar, if you have, it's going to help you out a bunch because these fish are tending to group up. It's not like you're finding big schools, but you'll find groups of 6 or 8 or 10 of those fish on those gravel flats, especially if you've got some isolated cover or some isolated brush piles. And again, have your topwater handy. I was fishing up there last week. It was about 9 o'clock in the morning, and all of a sudden they just started chasing shad. We threw some pop bars at them, threw a spook at them. We caught 2 or 3 fish out of it, so it's a good idea to have a topwater handy if you're going to be up the James or anywhere on the lake right now. The shad are starting to come to the surface, and everything's starting to move. So things are starting to change a little bit. Have a topwater handy. White River, I've spent a lot of time in the White River this past week, anywhere from the mouth, the confluence of the James all the way up above Big M, actually almost to Eagle Rock. Been fishing the White River a lot, been fishing the Kings River a lot. I like that area of the lake this time of year. Catching a lot of fish on drop shot rig with shad shape, cut tail, UV drop shot worm, chompers drop shot worm. Again, I'm fishing more trees and ends of docks, that sort of thing, looking at those suspended fish that are down between 20 and 35 foot. Are catching a few out on the flats as well, and the flat gravel points, that 20 to 30 foot range, actually probably 20 to 25 foot range has been the strongest range, and the drop shot rig's been better there. I've been catching them on a dual scuba spoon, throwing that spoon around any schooling fish I see, any shad that I see, just casting it and ripping it through the shad. I've been catching a few fish doing that, and also fishing it vertically, so keep that in mind as well. Been catching them on a peewee football jig, been catching them on a big worm, squirrel head with a Senko on it, and the big football jig, same sort of deal. Gravel points, gravel runouts. They're probably 18 to about 25, maybe even 30 feet deep, so keep your boat a little bit deeper than you think, and use your targeting sonar. You can really find these fish on the targeting sonar, find these little groups of fish, and pinpoint them and throw right at them, so you're not just making a bunch of blind casts at nothing. But we have been catching them on those baits as well, up in the, say shallow, but up on those gravel flats and gravel points. So keep that in mind as well. Guys, it's August. I think the kids all go back to school next week. Lake traffic is starting to slow down a little bit. I've noticed that with the kids going back to school. We've got Labor Day coming up, so couple of weeks, and then we'll hopefully get the lake back and won't be quite as busy. It's been fairly busy on the weekends, but not horrible. But you know, fish are biting, things are changing. In all honesty, you know, I don't really know what's going on with the lower end, but it has been very tough to fish the lower end, but the rest of the lake is fishing really good. We're getting some really good days, catching quite a few fish. So, you know, a lot of fish being caught. Best way to stay on top of it, join Table Rock Fishing Intel. Get those daily reports, weekly reports, all that information that'll help you find and catch more fish when you come to Table Rock. So check out Table Rock Fishing Intel if you haven't done so. If you're coming down, want to hire a guide, give me a call. It's Focus Fishing Guide Service. You can reach me at 417-860-4743 or hit my website, focusfishing.com, and either shoot me an email or book online. Either way, I get back to you as soon as I can. Thanks for watching the video. Again, check out Table Rock Fishing Intel if you haven't done so, but thanks for watching. Can't wait to hear from you. We'll see you on the water.